Decision Diaries.
Welcome to Decision Diaries. Today on Decision Diaries, we are going to be talking about all the decisions with planning a summer vacation because it is that time of year. And I have with me my husband of 25 years since we've planned plenty of summer vacations together, Bruce Layfield. Welcome back again.
Hey, Lynn, what'd you forget?
Oh, I forgot to mention my website. So please go up to my website, decisiondiaries.com, hoping to put some helpful links up there because it is the time of year for planning your summer vacation. And I'll have some tips, tricks, maybe some good websites to go to.
Good stories, too. We have some fun stories.
Yeah.
About planning and executing our trips.
Yeah. So starting off summer planning vacation. So usually around this time when the weather changes and spring break is sort of almost behind us, close to being behind us, that's when you start thinking, when are we going to take that mega summer vacation and where are we going to go? So usually it starts off with narrowing down the place. How do you think we kind of get to our place destinations?
You know, I was thinking about that this morning when we decided to do this. I think we find out places where we want to go. We pick about probably 5 or 6 places. And if they're in the general vicinity, we'll try to go to all of them. But if there's, some place and there are ones out of the area, then we'll eliminate that one and basically pick one that's reasonable, fun, so it has a lot of things we can do in it, has some of the things we want to do. If it's, lately it's been mountain biking, before it was stuff with the kids, amusement parks, stuff to do with the kids.
I'm sure budget.
Yeah, budget, family, friends in that area. Budget was always a big thing for when we were younger. When our kids were way younger, budget was a big issue. Still is a big issue because the last vacation we had was way over budget. So
yeah, we can kind of talk about that. So I think that the first decision that kind of narrows down what you're going to do is, are you going to drive or are you going to fly? I think that kind of says how big your budget has to be for sure.
Right, absolutely.
And how many people are with you. So if you are planning a vacation with your family and you're looking at four flight tickets, or you're looking at 5 flight tickets, depending how big your family is, suddenly your budget becomes really large. And if you were thinking about going overseas, which is something we did last summer, then it gets exponentially bigger.
Yeah. Way expensive. Yeah.
Okay, so fly or drive. So if you're going with the driving option, depending on what state you live in, then you have to decide if you have a nice husband like you who's willing to drive 5,000 miles on vacation. It is possible for you to go to, several states away.
Well, I don't want to drive 5,000 miles on vacation, but I think the maximum we've ever done with our kids and doing a drive vacation might have been the drive to Austin, Texas. That was probably 1,500 miles there and 15 back, 3,000 miles total. As a family, and we had one in tow. It was a budget conscious. It was during COVID, so that kind of worked out. I think my max, I would like to drive maybe 1,000 miles.
Oh, maybe 1,000. Okay.
Yeah. So if I can't get there in 2 days by car, I really don't want to be there by car. I would rather fly and then rent a car. Our trips to California, we've always flown out to California or flown out the West Coast because it just makes more sense. You can get out and do things right away.
Yeah. I mean, so, that's the positive of flying. Yes, you pay for it in price, but you make up your vacation in time. So when we did our Texas vacation, we tried to stop along the way so that to break up that drive, but that was a lot of driving and you really kind of felt like that wasn't a lot of vacationing because you're looking at a lot of highway miles.
Right. It was a lot of highway miles. It was a lot of, and we did stop in New Orleans, I think, on the way over, and it was a fun couple days. And then we jumped on the freeway to get to Austin, and it was another full day drive, maybe 8 hours from New Orleans, but it wasn't terrible. But you lose that day of touring around Austin. You lose that day touring around, that part of Texas that you could have done if you had just flown in. If I'd have flown in 2 days prior, there's 2 days more I could have had in Austin, Texas. But the cost was really what I think what kind of held us back that trip.
Yeah, I really do. So, you save some money. I think the other key thing is there are some drives that, are prettier than other drives. And I'd have to say, if you're listening to this podcast and you're most likely somebody who is familiar with Florida, since we've talked a lot about Florida, the Florida drive to Texas is not exactly filled with wonder and beautiful scenery versus, maybe a drive through the middle of the United States. And even the drive that we did when we went to save money, when we decided we weren't going to fly to New York City, we decided one time we were going to drive from Florida to New York being our final destination. I would say that drive wasn't particularly pretty either. And by the time we got to New York, we were, we only did like a couple of days, and that's kind of, we would have liked to have had more time. But again, we were being budget conscious, and we also thought there was a little bit more to see on the way. Like, we thought we were going to stop more, but you just wanted to get us to our final destination. So we kind of just bypassed Richmond and we went straight to New York. Remember that?
Yes. And that was my goal, is to put the pedal to the metal and go as fast as I could to get to New York City at night when the boys were sleeping. I think we stopped somewhere in North Carolina the first night, and then we finished the drive. And the greatest thing about having on a trip like this is you have your own car, so you can deviate a little bit and you can do other things. You're not locked in to public transportation or an Uber or renting a car. That's kind of the bonus to it. But if you don't know the traffic laws, can be fun. Learning new traffic patterns can be fun. Getting stuck in, you said Richmond, but getting stuck in Virginia traffic might have been the worst thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also important for everyone to know that when you are on I-95 and you're heading through South Carolina, you lose a lane.
Yeah. You go from all the way from Florida to Georgia. It's 3 lanes all the way up, and then it goes down to 2 in South Carolina, and there's a bottleneck right there that it goes on to probably in 5 miles, 6 miles, where people are merging in. If you don't get through that quickly in the right time of day, you can forget it. It's a nightmare. But it's part of the process. If the good thing about now is versus when when we were younger, when our parents did these drives, is we know what to expect. We can plan out. Google says how long it's going to be a drive, or Waze is going to say how long it's going to be a drive, where the traffic patterns are, where to skip. So that kind of makes it interesting, because on the way back from Texas that time, we got stuck in Baton Rouge, and we took some back roads through Louisiana. And it was pretty fun. We saved probably an hour, 2 hours worth of traffic waiting by taking Waze.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to make driving sound bad, because I actually think driving on the West Coast
absolutely
is obviously very pretty. Lots to see, especially on the Pacific Coast Highway, and just going up all the way the West Coast, even if you're going all the way up into Washington. Lots of things to see. Now, again, watch out for the 405. We're stuck on the 405. So, budget conscious, drive, consider who's driving and how long they want to drive, or else they'll complain about, and it won't feel like a vacation for them. Right. Which I think at one point you were like, am I on vacation? I'm not quite sure.
We took a cruise one year because I didn't want to drive anymore. I wanted somebody else to be at the helm, and that worked out. That was nice.
Right. The cruise was just somebody else driving a boat. Right. Yeah.
No, you didn't have to worry about. I didn't have to worry about traffic. I could drink as much as I wanted and sleep in, all that. So that was pretty fun.
Yeah, of course, we're very ADD, so we're sort of confined on a boat.
Yeah,
So
that was something different. Yeah, that was different.
So the other thing about flights, well, I mean, if you plan far enough in advance, some of the flight prices are not too bad. The other thing that I think we've been learning a lot about is changing your hub. If you change your hub, like for us, if we change our hub from Jacksonville to Orlando, sometimes we can save some money there.
Yep.
And so just a quick drive, maybe 2 hours away from your airport, surprisingly could cut your cost in flights, $200 or $300 there. Now,
Well, can I
yeah,
jump in here? The great thing about going to a bigger hub, like Orlando's a bigger hub for Florida, is you have direct flights.
right.
And having a direct flight is like magic. I mean, where you don't have to have a connector. And every time I catch a connector, I'm delayed. My luggage gets delayed. I'm waiting on my golf clubs to arrive. I mean, it was always something. Every time we caught a connector, it was like, oh my gosh, here we go. And if you don't fly out bright and early, and in the afternoon comes along around 7 o'clock, flights are starting to get delayed. Everything's getting delayed. Cancellations are coming. And if you're flying into Florida in the afternoon, here comes the thunderstorms, and it's going to be you're just going to be delayed, and you're not going to get home when you expect. We got, I think, delayed in Italy, coming back from Italy, 2 hours, and we lost our connecting flight.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important. So forget sleeping in. If you're going to go take a flight, wake up at 5 a.m. It's totally worth it because you could be to your destination by 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've flown into Vegas one time from here. I think I was there at 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah, yeah. My sister-in-law, we went on a trip and we flew in to Nashville and we had a drink in our hand at 10 o'clock at breakfast. And so we were already starting to hit the Nashville strip before lunch even started. And we already had one drink underneath our belt. So highly suggest just go to bed at 9 o'clock the night before, wake up at 5 a.m. You're on the flight like a zombie, and then you get out and you're having breakfast in your brand new destination. And, I think it's really important also to note that vacation is so important to your mental health.
Absolutely.
Can we just say, I mean, I'm going in tomorrow and I'm definitely putting in some PTO because it is time to plan.
Yeah, we got to come up with our next vacation, and we've definitely been grinding at work, so it's time for a break. I'm ready for a break.
Yeah, if you haven't decided on your vacation, now is the time to reward yourself with all the hard work you're doing. And we've never been one that does a staycation. I think that would have to be a different podcast, and I probably have to have a guest because you and I do not do that. We do not take off time to just sit in the same exact place that we sit in every single night of the week.
Honey, our house is like a luxury apartment already, or a luxury resort already. We got a pool. We got a wonderful dog. Oh my gosh, it's so nice to be here every day. So let's staycation here this year. Let's do that.
No. If COVID has taught us anything,
we were flying out of
town. Everyone should be getting out and exploring as much as they possibly can. 100%. So we talked about flying. We talked about driving. I think we're missing something, right? What are we missing? We are missing camping or hoteling. Is that the other big decision?
A while ago when we started talking about this, one thing that came to my mind, and when I grew up, my dad, my parents, we camped and we had a big RV. We drove across country. I actually made that drive to California one time. I don't want to do it again. Made that drive in an RV, and we camped in all these different sites, which was awesome. I had a great trip. And then we drove to all our other vacations. We had hotel trips, and I was thinking about it, and I don't recall my parents making plans ahead of time. Like, they didn't know where they were going to stay. They knew, okay, like if we were going to New Orleans, they knew we were going to be in New Orleans, or if we were going to Asheville, they knew they were going to be in Asheville. I don't recall my parents having a hotel reservation beforehand. I think maybe a couple times if it was a special hotel, but if it was somewhere we were just staying a day or two, they never had reservations. It was, I want to say we drove up and I'd run inside. Do you have vacancies? yes or no. And if they did, we booked. If they didn't, we found another hotel.
Well, I think the internet changed all that, right? All
Absolutely.
the travel sites and everything. And it actually it changed it for people who want to get a last minute hotel and also for people who want to get a last minute reservation at a state park or get a last minute reservation at an RV park. Now there are so many people moving about and planners moving about that, people are booking early.
Right.
So that part's different. I also think my dad was a planner back in the day before we had the internet and travel websites. And I remember my dad had a target of a hotel we were going to go to, but I don't think I'm with you. I don't think he ever called in advance and made a reservation, but somehow there always seemed to be a room. Now,
Right.
when we drove from Florida to New York and we were kind of like, oh, we're just going to randomly stop along the way. Remember, we got stuck in at a hotel that there was some big military conference or some military thing going on. So all the hotels in Virginia or around Virginia were booked near the military base.
Right.
And there was only one room left and someone had smoked in there. And I almost would have preferred sleeping in the car, to be honest.
It would have been better.
Yeah, it was such a waste of money.
It was actually really bad. That room was probably one of the worst rooms we've had. And we've had some doozies, but that one may have taken the cake. That one was fun.
Yeah, we actually can do a whole podcast about bad hotel rooms.
Oh.
I will say vacationing is all about there's very, very high expectations as you're planning and you're trying to decide, okay, what are the types of activities that we want to do? Now, us being kind of a very active and ADD family, we can do a lot of activities in one day.
We go.
So you have to kind of know the pace of your group, and we tend to be a fast-paced group. So if we think that we're going to go to a zoo, most people would say, "Oh, okay, we're going to do the zoo," and that's pretty much going to be a lion's share of our day. Our family, we have to say, "Oh, we're doing a zoo. We'll probably knock that out in 3 hours, and then where are we going to go to dinner after, and then what are we going to do after that?" So it's usually 3 or 4 activities in one day.
Oh yes. I mean, our day breaks down into like 3 spots: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So what are we doing in between breakfast and lunch, between lunch and dinner, and then after dinner? It kind of breaks out to that. So my wife has to eat, and I have to eat, and our kids didn't really care, but we kind of broke our days up into that. So where we go have breakfast at is going to be near what we're trying to see that morning, and then within 3 hours we're moving on and we're going to something else that you see people there for 4 or 5 more hours than what we are, but we just don't have the attention span to be the patients.
Well, I've always felt like food is part of the vacation experience. And, on the cruise, obviously food was part of the vacation experience.
Oh, it was.
And on the cruise, drinking a lot was part of the vacation
that was
experience.
After dinner,
Yeah. So food does make up some of it. And some of the research and some of the planning that I did, especially when we did our big California trip, was making sure that we went to iconic or very interesting restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
One, trying to expose our children to different kinds of food. And I think we really broke through our second child when we took them to New Orleans. This child was very into, always ordering the kids' meal, which was chicken nuggets.
Chicken nuggets, buddy. If it chicken nuggets, chicken fingers, he didn't do macaroni and cheese, but if it had chicken fingers, that was it.
Yeah. And so when we were in New Orleans, there was no chicken fingers on the menu, and he had to have crawfish.
Right.
And fell in love with it. And then that sort of opened up his mind with, you know what? I don't want to order chicken fingers anymore. And after that, he became a lot more interesting and started trying all of our food. And I think that was when he was maybe 6.
No, he was probably 8 or 9.
New Orleans?
Yep. Yeah, he had to be.
8 or 9? Okay. Okay. Well, New Orleans is a great place if you're trying new food and you're
It's
thinking to yourself, what have I been missing out on? All these different spices and everything like that. So, highly recommend. New Orleans is a great stop if you are traveling from West Coast to East Coast to West Coast, and you're going across, sort of hugging the waterways, right?
right.
And not going through the center of the state.
Right. I mean, there's so much to see. I mean,
Well, that's what
and
life's about.
right. And so when we made these plans, I think on our trip to North Carolina one time, you got on a website that showed you interesting things along the way, or what was it called?
Oh, okay. So here's another great thing, and I'm going to put this link on the website. I love roadside attractions.
Roadside attractions.
Roadside attractions are really important. We Chevy Chase it. If it's just a little bit off the beaten path, it is sometimes worth seeing the roadside attraction.
Columbia, South Carolina, you found the biggest fire hydrant man has ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was so cute. I think the boys really appreciated it.
They loved it.
And they were like,
it was in the middle of a parking lot.
Yeah.
Which kind of made it funny.
Yeah. I mean, the roadside attractions sometimes are there's big hype, and then you go there and you're like, oh, okay. Yeah. Technically that is a big fire hydrant. It's not in an open field, or it's not maybe where you expect it to be. But yeah, there it is. And then it's a great sort of stopping point for everybody, just kind of stretch their legs and make fun of mom for wanting to stop at the gigantic fire hydrant. I think there's another thing about planning vacation that we haven't talked about, but we probably need to. And that is, there will be at least one fight.
Oh, question. Everybody gets some of this. Yeah. There's going to be, what the funny thing is, we say that, and we definitely have, and we've definitely had our moments. And I laugh now thinking about it. I've had a few where I'm just so frustrated, and I've been driving all day and everything. And these three are driving me nuts, and I need some Bruce time. But at the end of the day, we laugh about it and we move on. I can tell you how many times we've been to Disney and seen people have knockdown dragouts in the middle of Disney World just because they're trying to get something done. It's you're going to have your arguments. You just got to move through it.
It's great people watching. Obviously, we're in a very touristy state, and we're veterans of Disney because it's just down the street from us, and so we're old pros. But we've seen families that have really saved up and spent a large part of their budget to come to Florida and stay at Disney for about 10 days for their children to have that wonderful experience. And somewhere around day 5 or day 6, the child's tired and is just not appreciating everything mom and dad have lined up for them. But, there's sibling fights and there's couple fights. And, now as empty nesters, we can go on vacation and, being away from home and traveling and checking in and out of hotels. And then sometimes you have to be ready to abandon your plan. And you've gotten on me about that. I think we've had some fights about that, where maybe I planned a little too many side items, and you've said, okay, that's enough of the planning and we need to be impromptu. So, you have to be ready and flexible.
Right. You have to be flexible. And if you're driving, like sometimes we've rented camper vans, we've rented, cars. And I think one time we were in California and we went by some kind of farm, and you wanted to stop. The problem was the fog was so bad, you could not see 10 feet in front of you. And you were like, well, I want to go see, where's this? What was it? Avocado? No, it was
artichoke farm. I love artichokes.
Yeah.
And artichokes in California are as big as your head. They're really nice.
Yeah, but you couldn't see 10 feet in front of your head. So it was just like, it just was not going to work. And our time frame was getting kind of crunch, and we had to be at a campsite, I believe. And it just didn't work out. But, we called an audible and it worked out. We've called audibles when, the food wasn't good. We had a huge blow up on that in New York City, if I recall.
Oh, and, yeah.
There's a place in New York City, will not be named, But our boys,
They saw mom and dad fighting.
They saw mom and dad fighting.
Oh
but
yeah,
they saw us get through it too.
They saw mom and dad fighting, and then they saw that cold moment where mom stops talking to dad and we're just walking beside them, and then later on at night when we are hoping they're sleeping, we are in part 2 of our argument, and then when we wake up in the morning, it's all sunshine and rainbows because we've reconciled sometime during the night. And I think kids need to see that, so don't completely hide that from your children. I think that's a growing experience.
Sure.
I think one of the funniest things that my dad really expressed to me, now there were a couple times my sister and I back in the day didn't have enough things to entertain ourselves with in the back seat. There were no electronic devices. I don't even think we had Walkmans at the time. And so entertaining each other meant, fighting, poking each other and all of that. And my dad had just had enough of it, and he wanted to keep driving. So somehow he managed to reach back and whack one of us and yell at one of us and keep driving. And I remember, my dad sort of looking over at my mother like, and why did we decide to do this? So the very first time that we took our kids on vacation, and I came back afterwards fairly exhausted, and I called my dad and I said, well, we're back from family vacation. He started laughing and said, how was it? And I believe we had the exact same experience. Our 2 boys were sort of messing with each other in the back. Our one son would wait until we would pass a bathroom and get in the middle of nowhere. And that's when he had to urgently go to the bathroom. Yeah. It never failed. So, but that is all part of the journey. And so these are things we're talking about that are fun and interesting.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you laugh about it, but at the time you're so in it, you're like, oh my God, I just want to get to the place. It's a driver. I just want to, I zone in and I just want to drive, and I just don't want to be bothered. Let me get to the place. I control the gas pedal. I control where we go. And I got 3 people looking at me like, we need to go to the potty. I'm like, we just stopped an hour ago. Why again? Happens every time. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But now in hindsight, it's kind of funny. But in the middle, when you're in the middle of it, it is not very funny.
So they say you need a vacation from your vacation. and true. I think the other thing is, having one down day after you return back from your mega vacation before you launch into work is always a good idea, but not everybody had that. And now we have, companies have changed some of their vacation policies, and depending on where you work, you may have, what they call unlimited PTO. And unlimited PTO sounds like, oh, okay, I can just take off 5 weeks. That is not unlimited PTO. You still find yourself, really just only taking maybe 2 weeks max at a time, because when you return back to work, you could have 450 emails waiting for you. And of course, you need to pay for this vacation. So you do need your job upon your return. So if you have vacation time, use it.
We've been known to work on vacation. And I recall being in a van early in the morning one time with you in California, and you were taking a conference call.
Yes. Yes.
So, and then I've numerous times, as a self-employed person, I can't tell you how many phone calls I get or texts I get that I handle. When I try to handle it under, sly, but you always catch me, but just try to handle stuff that I can handle. And if I have to get on the phone, I'll get on the phone, but the work's still going to be there when you get back. If you have a job where you can turn it off for 2 weeks or a week, good on you. Good gracious.
We really aim for that. I honestly think that is the best practice, right? If you tell your company you're on vacation, I really try to honor when my boss or anybody that I'm working on a project with tells me they're on vacation, unless there is a major catastrophe at work, which, let's qualify the level of catastrophe. I am not going to reach out to somebody. I'm pretty sure I can find whatever I need, either from someone else within the company, that it does not require me to reach out to someone's cell phone. So yeah, I think that is one of those things that good companies will tell you, please do not reach out to employees when they're on vacation. Right.
Right. I bet when you're self-employed or you're, I don't know. It's easy to say that, but at the end of the day, you got to be able
something
to.
You struggle with.
Yeah, I struggle with it because if I don't work, I don't get paid. So it's kind of one of those things. But I've struggled with it, but I've done better. But at the end of the day, I still have fun on vacation. I still have a good time. Anything that I deal with, if it's an hour out of my day or 30 minutes out of my day, maybe 5 minutes out of my day of work on a vacation, like you had, I think you were on the call for an hour that morning. Everybody was asleep because we were on the West Coast, and it wasn't really that big of a deal. It was like, woke up and got back to having a good time in California that trip.
Yeah. I mean, I think, being able to only maybe dedicate an hour or so and, not drag your family or your spouse through a whole 8-hour day of working while being on vacation. So taking a phone call here and there, I guess, is all right. As long as you get back in the game. You got to get back in the game. You got to get back in the mental state of vacation. Okay, the last one we're going to talk about, I think this is sort of a category within itself, is, we kind of talk about having a budget. And sometimes our budget is, well, I mean, generally we've had, either a fairly large budget. We anticipate we're going to spend a lot of money, or we make some accommodations to kind of save some money to stay within a certain range. But I think that if you really are trying to be, hey, we have X dollars to spend, you probably need something that is all inclusive, or like a cruise. Right. We said, okay, we're going on this cruise, and you put your money down way in advance, so you're dedicated, you're going on the cruise, and then you pay in maybe 2 installments, 2 parts, but then that's it. There are some taxes on cruise that I don't know that we totally know about going into it,
but
think
it's tips and a little bit of tax.
Oh yeah, it's tips, but it's not the
tip was
lion's
a shocker,
share.
but it wasn't terrible.
Yeah. But for our honeymoon, for example, that was nice. We just paid one price, went to a Sandals, and then we came back from our honeymoon. We didn't worry about anything coming in that we overspent. Now that's a little different than when we went to London. We went to London and we came back and we looked at our credit card and we got a little too crazy.
Well, it was our 25th anniversary, so we kind of went all out, which was fun. I mean, at the end of the day, we still had a good time. One thing, advice: if you are flying overseas, when you land, you're usually landing first thing in the morning. Unless you're a perfect sleeper on a plane, or if you have a sleep area on a plane, that first couple of hours suck. I mean, it sucks. We landed in London, and I really don't recall much. I know we had a great time. I saw the pictures, but I don't recall much because I was so exhausted. I was so tired from the plane ride. By the time that night rolled around, I was, I think my body had adjusted and I was good to go. And, we got on the sleep schedule pretty quick. But the first couple hours, you just got to anticipate that it's going to stink. It's not going to be fun. And our friends flew in, and, we kind of warned them. I'm like, they're like, oh, we're going to go do this the first day. I'm like, okay, all right. And we flew in, and they flew in a couple days after us. And when they got in, they were gassed. I mean, totally gassed. And this couple has so much energy.
Right. Yeah. You have to know your energy. Gassed. And, the other thing that I think we've made tragic mistakes with, tragic mistakes is, sometimes we do like the independence, and we don't always take advantage of some of the public transportation.
Yes, that's true.
And I think one of the things we noticed on our London credit card statement is that we were using Uber and taxis entirely too much. I think we did the same thing in New York. I think if there are really good public transportation, which is really easy to find, to see and really get the hang of, you should just sort of jump into that and save some money there. And so when the other couple met up with us, they were really good at it, or never even tempted us to just grab an Uber. Here's the other thing too. In some of these small urban places, when you get into a cab, you kind of will find yourself sort of sitting in traffic. So sometimes I like the cab because you're able to drive in and, you see some sights along the way from the airport, maybe heading to your hotel. You see some sights that you obviously would miss if you were in a subway or if you were in a tube. But maybe that's great for when you first get there, just so you can get to your hotel as fast as possible. But then from that point forward, please learn from our mistakes and our poor decisions, that you're just kind of wasting some money and you're sitting in traffic a little bit. And, time is important depending where you are and how many sites you want to see, which, our list is always way longer than we have time for. And we talk about going back, but just so everybody knows, the go back, we tend not to go back to places we've been to for a while. One good example of that is we went to Italy in our 20s, and then it took us 30 years to get back to Italy.
Quite 30, about 25 years.
Yeah. Close enough. It took us 30 years to get back. So, okay. So here we are.
All right. Where are we going to plan? What are we going to do? Where do you want to go, Lynn?
Well, I don't even have a clue of where we're thinking of going. All I know is we need to be thinking about where we're going. And I do believe that we are probably going to be in some sort of fly somewhere type of situation, sure, as opposed to driving.
Absolutely.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I'm not driving.
Okay.
So I drove enough this last couple of weeks. For work, I don't need to be in a car for another month. I'll be okay.
And, now that we don't have to pay for our kids' flights, it does help with our budget quite a bit. So, yeah, we're definitely flying somewhere. The other thing, too, is sometimes we've had some themes, and we always try to get, thanks to our friend Alexa, who is like, nature is so important. And so we always try to get in either a national park, if possible, as part of our sort of vacation package that we make ourselves. Mm-hmm. Or we also try to get in sort of a little city action. Right. And then now we've added a third element, which is mountain biking.
Yes.
And then, as always, food.
It's always food.
Food. Oh,
it's always the food. Don't let her tell you anything different. It's always the food.
And there's one more. There's one more element we didn't talk about. There's food, and then there is art.
Oh, yeah.
So, you actually can get all 5 of those components if those are the things you're interested in, or music, art or music.
And I was thinking about this. What do I like to do? I do like sometimes going to sporting events.
Oh, that too. Yeah.
I've gone to a couple football games. I've gone to hockey games. We've gone to a baseball game in Boston. Sometimes it's fun to go to sporting events just to see the local team, or you might get to see your team play. It's always a good time, and just have fun. There's so much different culture out there to go explore. And I was not one to explore Indian food until I went to London, and that may have been one of the best 5 meals I've ever had in my life.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it's so good. And just explore some local culture. Of course, all the pubs in London were awesome, and in Italy, just phenomenal. And the art, we've gone to some great museums. And top of the list is Crystal Bridges in Arkansas. It's hard to touch that one. But, I guess I'll have got to go to France or something one of these days to go see the Mona Lisa. But what did we do? Uffizi?
Yeah, we did Uffizi, and we did all the major art museums in Italy. We didn't do all the art museums in London. We only went through a modern art museum.
We did.
Yeah, we did the modern art museum. So how do you get all this plan together, I will give you a couple of things. Obviously, you can sit there and you can Google and all of that, but there are some tried and true that are really good. There is only one place for roadside attractions, and you can Google for roadside attractions. There is one website out there. I imagine they probably have added like an Instagram page or something like that. You probably have your favorite travel site that you probably have points with at this point, either Expedia or Travelocity or wherever that is. What's really nice, I will tell you that we are Expedia fans. We sort of adopted Expedia early on. And what's really nice is we can print off our agenda for my dad, who always likes to make sure that I'm safe, and we let him know where we are at all times. So they have a great feature of sort of printing off the agenda so that you don't have to type it all up for any of your relatives or babysitters or dog sitters or anybody like that. You just can generate a PDF and email it over to them. So that's really super nice when planning. From a book standpoint, we have, your typical Fodors and those books that I've picked up to kind of have those nice little pocket maps just in case we run out of GPS, because sometimes we go out to parks and stuff and you may not have great connection there. The only thing that I don't like about those books, that I think somebody needs to go write another book, is they tell you about all the regular things. But one of the things that actually helped us during a fight, we were having a fight, and this was in Arizona. And at this point in my dramatic fashion, I think I had actually gotten out of the car. I was so angry, I just needed to walk by myself and sort of left you and the boys in the car. And I just had to walk off some steam. It was just that point in the trip. And so I did get back in the car, and there was some very, very awkward silence as, everybody was just trying to calm down. Nobody wanted to yell at anybody anymore. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and it wasn't on any book we looked at, we stumble across Arizona. It wasn't even on roadside attractions.
No, it was totally bizarre.
And so when we went into Arizona, it was like, that was the moment of like, aha, like all of a sudden, let's see some bears. And you drove through this little drive through, and the bears were really getting along that day. It's the best way to say it, which was really funny after you have a fight with your spouse, that you go through a nature park and see bears doing what nature does. Our boys were a little older, so they weren't shocked, but the bears were having a good time, and that was a great laugh for our family. So those are a few ideas. I hope everybody is planning vacations. Do you have any last minute tips?
I mean, yeah, I think you go to Facebook. I think you go to Facebook, and they have so many like group things to look at. Like when we had Disney Pass holders, I had the group pass at a group with Facebook. And I found out so many little things that made our trip that much better. If we were down in Disney, I could, I knew how to get into this one place, or I knew when to call. And some of like finding mountain bike trails, I would join a group in that area, or ask a group and ask people, because your Facebook friends or your social media friends, you don't know who's looking, you don't know where they've been a lot of the times, and get advice. I mean, we've had so much good advice, like. We found, some great restaurants. We found great places to ride our bikes. I mean, great trails. And don't be afraid to ask a local. I mean, when you get there, like if you're there with a local and you're talking to them, and they will tell you, hey, what's a good local place, and they'll give you the best spots. And every time we've done that, we've been very happy.
And sometimes we've been shocked that something that the locals suggested wasn't on a website, that we were so close to like Dogwood Canyon, and nowhere within all the travel sites we went even mentioned that Dogwood Canyon was about 20 miles away
20
from where we
miles
were
from
staying.
Eureka Springs, yeah.
And that was just mind blowing. And if you're not familiar with Dogwood Canyon, because I don't know why, but it doesn't seem to come up. It's a beautiful preserve from the founder of
Bass Pro Shops. Yeah.
Bass Pro Shops. And so, we just kind of stumbled upon that with locals. So really good ideas there. I will also kind of say, I'm going to throw it out to some of my fellow podcasters. There are some great podcasts out there, depending on what you're looking for. And so before we went to London, I listened to a podcast of, if you're only in London for a short period of time, what are sort of the top things off the beaten path, not your normal London things, but what are sort of the other fairly unknown London things that they suggested, and took 30 minutes of my time, listened to it on the way, just driving to work. And I learned so much.
Right.
So, I mean, that's what podcasts are there for you. Someone who is giving you some information in a short form. I hope that's what we've done here today.
Absolutely.
with these vacation plans. And now, as we are thinking through it, I will try to share some of the places that I generally go. But I do like that all of our vacation have those elements in it.
Oh, well, you got food, a good place to stop and visit, see some friends usually, a national park or a state park that's beautiful that you don't, something we typically wouldn't see, especially being Floridians. And, you're going to have some ups and downs, and that's just part of the fun of having a vacation, because when you go back and look back on it, you're going to laugh. Like, I cannot believe I got in a big fight over a pizza made of artichoke.
Well, you weren't open to artichoke being on the pizza, and that's why I got so upset.
Well, see, we were still talking about the stupid pizza.
But the kids still talk about, I can't believe you guys could have been divorced over artichoke pizza. We obviously were not headed to divorce over it, but they thought it was at the time, since it was such a big deal.
I'm going to get the last word. Hey, Lynn, how was that pizza?
Well, they were terrible at artichoke. So in the end, I'm really glad we didn't order that pizza. All right. So, okay. I hope everybody is planning their vacations. You deserve it. You worked for it. And high expectations, funny stories afterwards.
Always.
At least somebody's going to fight. That's going to be funny too. And then, if you go over your budget, you're going to pay it off. It's going to be just fine. So please go up and visit my website, decisiondiaries.com. Obviously, I think I have a lot of links I need to put up there if anybody is interested, and reach out to me for sure if you are doing anything along the West Coast is one of our mega trips. One of the other ones was the Utah 5. Happy to share some tips and tricks in Italy as well as England.
Absolutely.
DecisionDiaries.com. Thank you for coming on again. I'm glad we didn't fight on this podcast.
Lucky me.
You are lucky.
I know. Thank you, Lynn. This is fun.
All right. Thank you for listening.
Decision Diaries.